Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Economic Development Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, 24th? 25th. May 25th. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Chow. Councilor Drinkwater.
Yeah.
3 present.
Okay, 3 present. As I mentioned, this is a meeting of the Economic Development / Downtown Subcommittee. The purpose of the meeting was a motion that was made by Councilor Drinkwater, seconded by Councilor Chow, to have a presentation that was given to the City Council relative to the development of a boathouse up off Pawtucket Boulevard, close to the boat ramp. So with that, I know that we have some members of the administration on Zoom. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So if there's no questions from members of the subcommittee, the record also reflect that Councilor Conway, Councilor Mercier, Councilor Noonan, Councilor Rourke are present in the chamber. And so if there's no objection, I'd like to see the report, the presentation. I think it's exciting. And it's going to be a real benefit to the city from many perspectives. Rowing is, when I say boathouse, let me just clarify for the audience, the boathouse is for the sport of crew, which is rowing. We see a lot of rowing on the river, and there's an organization that wants to develop both a boathouse, restaurant, and programs for the community. So with that, I don't see anybody on my screen, so I'm going to presume that, Mr. Clerk, that we can go right to Christine McCall, the city manager.
Yeah, I have Christine McCall on, and I have Christopher Hayes.
Okay.
Hi,
So,
thanks, Councilor.
Yeah,
Christopher
Christine, why don't we
Hayes
go to
has
you?
a
Great.
presentation.
Ms. McCall, do you want to give the presentation?
Hi, yes, Chris
Okay.
Hayes is here tonight from DPD, who will be leading the presentation.
Oh, he will. Okay, I'm sorry. It's we got a little echo in here. So, okay, Chris, let's. We're ready to go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor. If I share my screen, is that the proper method for this? Is this okay? This is up for the council members. Great.
Can I just interject? When you get a chance, can we get a hard copy of this proposal as well?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
So this is, I think you introduced it perfectly. It is a proposal to both respond to the needs of a valued nonprofit, which is the Merrimack River Rowing Association, and perhaps even more importantly, to advance the goals of the city's open space and recreation plan. And as you mentioned, in a nutshell, it's a proposal to dispose of city-owned property in an open competition. So any developer might be able to make an offer, basically, for a first floor boathouse open to a partner nonprofit and a second floor restaurant and entertainment use. Okay. But to kind of take a step back and talk about what that open space and recreation plan is, what we're really trying to do is increase and improve the availability of water recreation. That includes, but not is limited to, the crew rowing that is part of the Merrimack Rowing Association, but also kayaks, canoes, and other recreational activities that can take advantage of our beautiful resource of the Merrimack River. And importantly, that also aligns with the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. Really, the Merrimack River's water recreation, at least the non-motorized water recreation, is almost entirely handled by the UMass Lowell Bellegarde Boathouse, and it's shared by UMass, Lowell High, the Songus Industrial History Center and National Park Service, and the Merrimack River Rowing Association. The problem, though, is that although the association leases space in UMass Lowell Bellegarde Boathouse and have a good relationship, they really have outgrown the space. They've been turning away members for years. And this problem has really intensified because the Essex Rowing Club in Methuen has closed. So there's a lot of people looking for a new rowing home, and they just are being turned away by the local club. So we can't expand our recreation more than what we have unless we create new space for that. We were alerted to this problem by the Merrimack River Rowing Association a couple of years ago, actually. We are also worried that they might relocate, or we would lose, this potential recreation to other surrounding communities, and importantly, lose the annual regattas that the Rowing Association brings, which are twice a year, but they said with more space, they could potentially do it multiple times a year, which has all sorts of economic spin-off benefits and quality of life benefits for the residents. Another thing to note is that there's youth programming and community programming that the nonprofit brings. So in response to kind of this problem, DPD researched and we worked with the Rowing Association for the needs of not just them, but a typical rowing club, knowing that anything we do would potentially be open competition with any type of rowing nonprofit. I'm not going to really go through these very carefully because you can see them on the screen and you'll see the hard copy as well. But I just wanted to say that these all informed alternatives analysis and our proposed solution, and noted that ideally a location would be able to offer not just rowing, but those other recreational amenities that I mentioned, such as paddleboard rental or other private vendors to really expand the water programming on the Merrimack River. And this really is our proposed solution, which would be an open competition to dispose of a portion of 1190 Pawtucket to a developer for a boathouse/restaurant. And I'll talk about the alternatives in the parcel in the next couple of slides. But what we're looking at would be a private developer would develop a restaurant or an event space or a retail use. And that would provide a nonprofit space on the first floor for the rowing amenities. We could explore other public benefits that we might attach to the land, such as construction of public access trail, not trial, sorry about that, trail, a fishing dock, or additional space for the boathouse expansion or other benefits. And really, this is kind of a unique opportunity that we don't really get very often, which is shaping riverfront development. Very briefly, we did, before settling on 1190 Pawtucket for our proposal, look at several city and privately owned parcels. Generally, those on the south side, the acre side of the river, those either didn't have really enough space between roadway and river for the typical boathouse needs, or they were too close to the falls or to other motorboats, which would disrupt those non-motorized activities. On the other side, the parcels that we looked at generally were not available because of access. Either the boulevard separated them from the river, or one of the spots we looked at that was pretty promising ultimately ended up to be one of the Rourke Bridge alternatives. So this is why it's taken us a little while to finally settle on 1190 Pawtucket. Now, 1190 Pawtucket was acquired by the city as part of a land swap that involved the Songus Arena many years ago. We only recently closed on that property. Its current appraised value is about $1 million, and it's 4 acres. Our proposal is for only about an acre of that property. And you can see that the Rourke Bridge proposed alignment, alignment 3 is over through here, and alignment 2 is in this DCR owned area right here. Right next to 1190 Pawtucket is a water utility sludge ponds. Those have been confirmed to not really have a negative impact on the surrounding property, like smells or anything like that. We've confirmed that would not be an impact. We have also talked to the Lowell Regional Water Utility, and although we do have a lot of planning to do in terms of where they might expand and where we might expand recreation or other development opportunities, we both agreed that 1 acre on the west side, or I guess the south side of 1190 Pawtucket, would not impact their operations. The other people that we've coordinated with very briefly is the Department of Conservation and Recreation. They own the boat launch ramp that is usually used for motorized boats, although sometimes for non-motorized boats. Over in the west, it's far enough away from the dock that it wouldn't be impacting the crew rowing or other potential recreation activities that we've discussed. And they said that there is a possibility we could even do a shared curb cut so that it would minimize the traffic impacts on the boulevard. That would all need to be worked out kind of after we get through this phase, but just saying that the options are open. We did this possible site plan basically to prove that you could fit this use and the required parking on the 1 acre parcel and still have room left over for landscaping, potentially the riverfront trail and other amenities. And this is something that we've talked with both internally, but also with the Rowing Association, because they're the experts about what rowing associations might be looking for. And this is about 70 parking spaces, but that could be adjusted based on the space needs of both uses. And then this is really the rendering, rendering of a possible use, just kind of a pretty picture to get people's ideas beginning to move forward. You know, we would have an elevator, outdoor stairs. The nice thing about having the restaurant or retail use combined with the boathouse is that it would offset the development costs of the boathouse for the nonprofit. And also it would provide tax revenue to the city so that we wouldn't be necessarily losing this parcel entirely to a tax revenue stream. It says MRRA on the back out of it, but as I mentioned, any type of private developer could partner with any type of nonprofit in this proposal. And then this is just kind of a exploration of how the space could be used on the inside of the boathouse. Again, nothing that we would strictly require any respondents or bidders or however we're getting, you know, seeking respondents, but rather just to kind of prove that it can be done, a proof of concept. Right now, we are just seeking City Council support. Really, if the proposal is of interest, our next steps would be to develop those specific conditions that would run with the land and whatever instrument that we might use to select an appropriate developer and dispose of the property to that developer. I believe that is, yep, that is basically all we have for you today, and can open it up to discussion and questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I appreciate that. It's an interesting proposal. I think it's an exciting proposal. Quite frankly, as we mentioned, it advances the goals of the city's open space plan and recreation. It also aligns with the state open outdoor rec plan. So I'm enthusiastic about it. I like the fact that we're exploring this new venture, if you will, with the river and the rowing, the sport of rowing that is growing, and it makes a lot of sense. I tell you, when we exchanged the lands with the Songus Arena deal, someone had some good foresight to exchange this parcel of property. You know, that being said, I mean, there are a lot of obstacles. I'm glad to hear, of course, it's going to be a publicly bid process. Anyone under Chapter 30B for disposal of the property. So the next step that you're looking for is, and I do have a number of questions when it comes particularly to parking. It looks like there's 70. That's a good number. However, you know, at any given time on a beautiful night like this, 70 will stretch the limits, I think, by far. But two things are a concern. One is parking. Secondly is the permitting, because I envision, as you mentioned right now, there are regattas twice a year. That does play great strain on traffic and congestion as it is. There's limited parking to begin with, and we know thousands of people want to come. I think it's exciting. I think it's a good thing. But with that comes challenges. I know you're aware of that. But what is, I do know across the street, has there been any discussion? Maybe I'm jumping ahead with potential discussions with the OMACOM or with Farley White to say, look, when we have regattas, that place is going to be jam-packed. Have those discussions been taking place? Because I can tell you right off the bat, I know the neighborhood is excited about this, the neighborhood organization, from folks that I spoke to. However, naturally, the river is a great resource, but parking and traffic is, quite frankly, becomes a nightmare. And I think as we move forward, before we do this, alleviating some of those situations that exist now, because what happens is people go start parking in the neighborhoods, and that's not right, whether it's the regatta or including festivals. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I like the fact that we're proactive in shaping the riverfront. I think this is a good location next to the boat ramp, and partnering with the state and using some of that overflow space, because I think this is going to be something that's really going to take hold, and it's going to be a very, very positive thing for the city, both from an economic development, but also for the community, where there'll be a rowing, community rowing, and you look in Boston and other waterfronts, that it's exciting and it's good for the community. So I guess I just wanted to touch on either permitting of the regattas and parking, as well as any plans, because I think that's an obstacle that we have to address before rather than later.
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent point, Councillor, and that is something that we have thought about as well, the parking situation, I mean. And you kind of had the same idea that we had with potentially looking towards Farley White, especially because these events are usually on the weekends, which means a really large empty parking lot. We have not had those discussions yet because we're really kind of waiting for this step to make sure that this is something that we really wanted to pursue with multiple agencies. So if that is something that is of interest to the council, we certainly could have those conversations. It also would be something that we would have to discuss potentially how that fits in with the developer, with the nonprofit, things like that, because it wouldn't necessarily be any agreements with the city. It would be agreements with the vendors that end up being there. That
So
said,
do you
we
think,
also
could that be part of, I presume you're going to go out for an RFP, RFQ, RFI or RFP, and then rank advantage, certain elements advantageous or not? Is that the plan?
unless Christine has newer information than I do, I believe we have not decided on an instrument yet. Certainly would be welcome to input from the council on that. But it could be an RFP. It could also be a auction process that has conditions.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some other instruments we might want to use instead.
Okay, I'm going to open it up, but I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the revenue side. We'll be auctioning off. I mean, that's good resources. It's assessed at 926. Now is a good time to be, looking at real estate disposal. But I just think the project in itself adds such value to the river and the community that I plan on supporting it, and we'll work through the other issues, the important issues, moving forward. So with that, members of the subcommittee? No? Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question, just a short comment. I know we're short on time. I want to thank you, Chris, for that beautiful presentation. I love the visual. And again, we live in a great city. We have bodies of water all around us. We have the canals. We have the Merrimack River. And it's great to make, the city like Lowell, we definitely could use more activities along the waterfront. You see that Boston, along the waterfront area, they have done a beautiful job just increasing social activities and recreational activities and economic activities along the waterfront, and to have something, of course, not at that scale, but to start out with this boathouse economic development proposal. I think it's great. It's great for the community, great for the city. I guess maybe just a quick clarification. I was making a comment how great it is to have the boathouse proposal. So the proposal is made by the Merrimack River Rowing Association, and to have some quasi nonprofit private joint venture. I guess I have a question on the upstairs second floor on the restaurant side. That being considered private, does the Merrimack River Rowing Association, are they going to run that restaurant themselves, or are they going to sublease it to a restaurant business developer, or do they have somebody in mind, or is that something that we have to go out and look for some kind of somewhat of a business partner or tenant to be in that building?
Thank you, Councilor. And I do have to credit my colleague Sandy Swale for the beautiful renderings and design of this. To clarify, the Rowing Association did not propose restaurant retail use. Rather, they just came to us with the need and with the resources they had available for building a boathouse themselves, which were relatively slim. We proposed potentially partnering with a developer, and they would be interested in that. Again, saying they might not be the only game in town. I do not believe that they have any developer partners that have been picked out yet, but they did seem very confident that they would be able to find one.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dunkler is all set. Councilor Conway, then we have Councilor Mercy, Councilor Noon, Councilor Rourke.
Yeah, thank you.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is obviously an exciting project, and I know that it's been brought up before in the chambers a number of times, and that is utilizing our waterways. And this is, I think, a great opportunity. It's an area that has, should we say, underdeveloped, and it gives us an opportunity for to utilize this waterway so that we can encourage people, organizations, and groups to come in and put their proposals on the table, which I think can certainly help everyone. Certainly help the city. But I think we also have to keep one thing in mind too, and that is, what is the impact on that neighborhood? And I think that we need to vet out whatever process it is very carefully so that the impact is minimal at most. And that's something that kind of concerns me, because I know that in the past up in that particular area, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, and other people certainly have mentioned it too, and that is the parking problem, where it's limited, and we find that people tend to park anywhere and everywhere that they can find a spot. So I think we have to keep all that in mind too. But again, I'm very excited about this project and other projects that will follow this one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, Mr. Chair. I'm just very pleased about hearing this good proposal, which would add to recreation and many things in this city. But I'm wondering, and I'm taking me back to the very beginning. Now, is it the city of Lowell that owns the boathouse?
The city wants to own the boathouse, but it was transferred over to UMass Lowell. They still kept the name of the Bellegarde Boathouse, but that's UMass Lowell.
So it's UMass Lowell. So we don't derive any money or revenue from any of that?
That's correct.
So we would be partners. Who is proposing all this? UMass Lowell?
So this proposal is, it's city-owned land, and it's being proposed by the Economic Development Office. They've had conversations, and correct me, Chris or Christina, if I'm wrong, there's been conversations with the Merrimack River Rowing Association, because they've outgrown the lease that they use at the UMass Board. So it's a city of Lowell that wants to develop this.
Let's review this, and I'm not saying I want to put a wrench in the plans, but it's city-owned land that UMass Lowell owns. We don't,
No, so the UMass Lowell owns the boathouse, the Bellegarde Boathouse. This is
That's
the
right.
piece of property down the river a little bit further, right next to the Rourke boat ramp across the river. So this is a city of Lowell proposal.
it's a city of Lowell proposal. Does the city derive any revenue from the ultimate end of this? Say that their plans go through and everything is being the way that was presented. I see a weight room down there, I see an exercise place, I see a restaurant, but I don't see any revenue coming back to the city, but yet we're using our staff, DPD, and I don't know what we're getting out of this.
Sure,
I mean, I don't want to feel selfish, but I think our goal is to make money and bring it in for the taxpayer, but I don't see that happening.
I'm not going to speak for planning development, but as I understand it, we're going to put this out. It has to be publicly bid because it's a public piece of property. There'll be a developer that will come in and develop the property, and I feel they're going to either lease space to the Merrimack River Rowing Association. There'll be a restaurant that will derive revenue, and depending upon if it's a private developer, then they are going to, there's revenue that's going to come back to the city. But you know what? I want to go to Chris, the director, or Chris Hayes to answer those questions.
Sure, if I might, that was part of the intent of counter-proposing having a combined boathouse and restaurant use, so that there could be taxes from the city. To kind of set the stage, the current boathouse is owned by UMass Lowell. It's on DCR land. The city, I am actually not sure if the city pays UMass Lowell to use that because our schools use it, Lowell High uses it, or if we get it for free. But that is the current boathouse. Because the private organization that leases space from UMass Lowell, and UMass Lowell is currently getting that revenue, has outgrown that space, we were looking to provide a new plot of land for a new boathouse for that nonprofit, for that private nonprofit. The idea of the restaurant and retail use came up both because a developer could help fund the construction of the boathouse space for the nonprofit, but also because that would, exactly right, potentially provide a tax revenue stream for the city, along with any permit fees, economic development benefits from the nonprofit's activities, such as the regattas.
Thank you. Because I agree with you, Councilor Mercier. The value, it's a very valuable piece of property. We have to derive some tax revenue, and I think once we get the next step, we'll all be looking to that to make sure we're not taking essentially $1 million piece of property and then just handing it over to nonprofit and there's no taxes coming from it. I think there's going to be a combination.
And I'm not saying that this isn't a good plan. I think it's a wonderful plan. I just think that if we're partners too, what are we getting out of this?
Absolutely.
That's my complete concern.
I agree.
Thank you.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to join everyone saying that this is going to be a very exciting project for the city as we use the waterway. So I'm looking forward to the next step, whatever that is. And I'm sure that DPD and the manager office, as well as this council, will vet it out and do what we can to make sure that the plan is good for the city and at the same time address those concerns that the chairman and other members of the council brought up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the previous councilors that it looks like a really tremendous opportunity for the city. I remember back in, I think it was 2010 or 11, when the city and the state jointly named the boat ramp after my grandfather and his two brothers who served in World War II. Our family was excited back then. I would imagine that they'd be even more thrilled now knowing what could possibly be over in that area. I would imagine that Chris and Christine are on the line. The initial sale of the property would be revenue for the city, and I think the idea of putting in a restaurant or some retail space would also bring in more tax revenue for the city as well. I think that Mr. Chairman mentioned a small piece of the building may be used to the nonprofit, so I would think a large majority of the property, the taxes would be hopefully a benefit to Lowell. The one concern I do share is during the summertime, it is a very busy place. It is the main access for boats in Lowell. So I imagine during early spring, late fall, winter time, the parking wouldn't be a problem if there was a restaurant or some retail there. But I would think that during the summertime, when most of those spots are taken up, that they would have to come up with some sort of compromise. And the only other concern I would have is I know that the property lines for the city are, directly abuts the DCR state property. So I don't know if there's any other obstacles for a commercial developer or business person coming in that they'd have to cross in order to get permitted for what they want to do over there. But all in all, it's a terrific project, and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay, I think that concludes it. I think there was a good presentation. If we could get a copy of it when you get a chance, that'd be helpful to me, just so we have it, because I'd like to review it a little bit more. So with that, unless there are any other questions, Council. Oh, Madam Manager. This is like.
Jeez, I guess we're not that high tech, huh? Thank you. I just wanted to just add to very great points brought up here tonight by the council and by the subcommittee. And I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have this presentation, to get feedback from the council. I think, the issues raised, one of the ideas that we want to explore is it in the city's best interest to dispose of the land? I mean, it's very valuable, bring in revenue, but with conditions so that whoever bought it could also house this nonprofit who rents currently from UMass Lowell and would rent from the for-profit business, theoretically. And of course, address all the parking issues. That was one of the first things that came to mind is, it'd be great to have access to the river, to have this activity. It's something that's really underutilized in the city, but at the same time, understanding how do we work out all of the different aspects. So I credit planning and development for taking this issue and kind of coming up with a creative approach. And if the council supports it, we'll explore more, come back with more detail as to, what are our options out there. So I just wanted to just again thank the council for taking it up and raising important issues.
Oh, thank you, Madam Manager. I completely agree. So I think the rowing component of the Merrimack River in this particular corridor is significant to the point where one of the options with the Rourke Bridge is being designed to include a six lanes, so boats, so that the regattas can have that type of competition. So all good stuff. We better wrap it up. There's another subcommittee. Thank you. Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It looks like a great concept. It was a great presentation, and I would just move at this time that the subcommittee make a recommendation to continue moving forward with the concept. There are a number of issues that came up that I think can be addressed along the way. They're all valid, but at this time, move to make a recommendation from the subcommittee.
Okay, motion by Councilor Drinkwater to bring to the full council recommendation to proceed with the proposal that was presented for Boathouse on the Merrimack, seconded by Councilor Chow. Roll call.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Counselor Chow?
Yes.
Counselor Drinkwater?
Yes.
3 yeas.
3 yeas, motion passes unanimously. We'll bring this forward for a report with this recommendation. Motion to adjourn by Council Chow, seconded by Council Drinkwater. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, that motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.